All right, we're kicking off the July 14th GitOps Working Group Principals Committee meeting. I'm Dan Garfield. I will be moderating. Notes, no one has volunteered to take. Anybody?
Oh, if I was at my computer, I would, but I'm mobile, unfortunately.
Fair enough. All right, I will, we'll just do it ad hoc then. Let's see, in terms of last week, I know there was quite a bit of discussion around just revamping some of the principles and getting them simplified. Maybe since a lot of people are missing today, but we do have a new one, Daniel Warner. Do you want to introduce yourself? We can't hear
Still
you.
no audio.
Guess that's a no from Dan.
Well, when you work that out, you can let me know. So I think just to kind of reset, and please go add your name to the attendees if you haven't put in yet. We were talking about having kind of a goal in mind of trying to have maybe a 1.0 version by KubeCon. We've got GitOpsCon coming up at that time, so it would be really awesome if we could get there. Now, obviously, you know, we either get there or we don't, but to have that in mind as a North Star here, to be shooting for that, I think that's something that we can all work towards and hopefully achieve. The other thing is just level of participation. I think we've slowed down just a little bit. Last week, we had quite a few people. This week, maybe people aren't able to join. I'm wondering actually if maybe we're doing this too often. Maybe we should be doing it every other week. Let it build up a little bit more, make it more of an event for people to join. Any thoughts about that?
I do actually. I was actually thinking about this very thing the other day, and I think having it every week what made sense at the beginning because we were just trying to hash out the principles, and I can think now that we at least have consensus on the actual principles themselves, we probably don't need to meet as often. I don't know what anyone else's opinion on. I think maybe we can at least start a discussion on Git. But I agree, Dan. I think maybe we should have it every other week. And if we are, maybe time box it maybe for a little longer. I'm not sure. We can hash that out. But just in short, yeah, I think I agree with that, having it maybe every other week.
Cool. Any other thoughts about it, Robert?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page there as like personally, just starting in different working groups, doing tag related things, as well as other projects. It's kind of hard if we have this every single week. So at least having a little bit of gap there would be good.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, then I think its motion will probably carry. I'm going to follow up just quickly with the other co-chairs over Slack. So I'll take that as an action item to look at moving to like an every other week cadence. So I'll leave the note here. Cool. Let's see, and then in terms of work that we want to get done today, anybody have any items they want to bring up?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
In previous meetings, we have been talking about this list of pending items to go and start and continue. So, but it has not been clear if that's going to be done under this umbrella working group or in a different work stream. So has there been any communications or decisions or discussion around that?
No, I don't know if there's I don't know if there's an official pending list. I think there's maybe just GitHub issues that people are bringing up. Is that what you're thinking? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it was more on the started to work on, for example, documenting patterns or documenting, I don't want to call it best practices, but at least like reference way to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Comment from Robert.
We talked about it in the monthly GitOps working group meeting last week. Was it last week? Whenever it was. And we need to establish a roadmap, and I kind of got that as an action item. So I will try to gather all these things that we said that we kind of wanted to do and try to put it into some sort of list that we can kind of like look at and organize from. Right. So not really sure how that's going to look, but I'm going to give it a go, see if we can get it more organized than what's now.
Good, fantastic.
But if there is things we were talking about the patterns and you know all these different sources of information that we kind of want to gather. We were talking about a radar or landscape map or whatever of GitOps. Everything like that would be great if we had some sort of a list to work out of from. So at least when I start getting like a structure, at least I have something to put into it. I'm not really sure, and that's probably not a principals meeting thing. That's probably a GitOps working group monthly topic, I guess.
I think you would agree though, if William is ready to start working on one of these next items, by all means, like go open the issue or open the PR and let's move it forward. I mean, we're going to move a lot faster if people are bringing work forward that they'd like to get done than waiting for like a committee decision or something. So I don't know that, like William, if you're ready to get going on starting to create the pattern, I think we'd say high five. Let's do it.
In that case, where?
So I would put them. I would put the PR on the website because I think that's where we'd probably store it. And we could you could create a branch there that we could create like a navigation item for the website, and then just have something kind of similar to the blog format for patterns. We can create like a little metadata around it, and I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about it, but you know, there's the website repo, and we could probably create a new content item under there for like patterns or best practices or something like that. And if you want to take a crack at the metadata and start making one. Christian?
Sorry, I was on mute. Is the website the place for it, or would the principals document the open GitOps? You know, we have the documents section. Would that be a place for it? Or I mean, it can go both. I guess it doesn't matter. But what would the source of truth be, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the original idea for the patterns was this would be basically a directory where like, I want to find, how do you do GitOps if I'm using AWS and GitHub and this, that, and the other thing. And you could kind of look through a catalog of best practices or patterns that people had posted and shared to say, hey, here's how we built our process. Here's how we did it. You can share this. You can, I don't know, upvote it or something. I think that was the idea. So a directory of these, not necessarily like a, it would, yeah, it wouldn't be like a fit for like the principles document.
Yeah, so at least it's easily searchable. I get it. Cool. All right.
And is that, William, is that the thing that you were most interested in getting in on working on?
Yeah, that will be one. So I work in the telco space, telco industry, and I work a lot with GitOps on telco environments. So for example, start flushing out some of these patterns for telco, for example, for 5G, how they look, and start documenting those to, again, put something out that is at least provide some guidance or some ideas on what to consider, how to structure some concept such that it map to what a telco needs, things like that. So it's in that extreme in my case.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like where you want to put submissions and stuff, I mean, we've got the open GitOps org, and I think maybe Scott, do you want to give just a quick share for those that don't know that what we're doing there?
Absolutely. And again, and sorry I was late, but I'm glad that I knew you had this, Dan, and I had to take a quick break. Yes. So I'm trying to look at the camera here. I'm in a new space today, but yeah. So William, maybe it would just be good to share my screen. I don't know. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it for 1 sec. Here is the here is the Open GitOps project. Basically, the top level, these repositories all have some description of what they're for at this point, except for events, which is just bare bones, and we're gonna set that up ASAP. GitHub prevents you from, unless you use the API, which I've been too lazy to do that so far, or too many other things on the agenda. GitHub UI prevents you from adding a description until you actually create your first commit. So we'll do that soon. But basically the point of that is, this is the only one that doesn't tell you. The point of this is that we're going to have a separate space for, the idea is we'll have a separate space for events that will stand on its own and could be used for various things. And what the most pressing need we know right now is for the website. And so that is in this repo. The project repo is the top level kind of entry point for the Open GitOps project. So it should give you all the information about the things that I just mentioned. And what Dan had just, I guess, if I sort of heard right at the very end, I think, of what you were saying, but if you wanted to work on best practices or patterns, or let's just say use cases, case studies even, user roles, or whatever other supporting documents that we really should have that would flesh out not only the principles, but perhaps build on those principles as well. Those should be in documents, in the documents repo. Right now,
I was thinking they would be under website, because we're trying to make like a searchable directory for the best practices, like for the patterns.
Well, yeah, ultimately though, if Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the website will, in
consume it.
Yeah, a fast follow, hopefully near future iteration. Yeah, we'll consume these documents from these other places where they live. So the goal of them will be, they will live on their own, and they will be available. The only value for them won't just be for the website. People, for example, can download these packages themselves. You know what I mean? They're versioned and so on. But probably the most visible place for the foreseeable future will be on the website. But yeah, actually, Dan, you're right. Until we get that done, we're going to be duplicating some stuff in the website repo for now.
Okay.
Is that an okay intro? It might be. Could have done a better job, but that's.
No,
sure.
that was great. Thank you.
Cool.
Let's see. So I think, yeah, William, go ahead.
So question in that sense, let's say the published version is going to be in the website, following the idea that Robert presented there. So what if we do the iteration on a pattern repo, do the iteration, and then the published version goes into the website?
One thing that makes sense, and one thing I didn't mention, I just wanted to kind of put a period on what, or punctuate what I had introduced for a second ago. So the documents repo is versioned, and it's intended to be versioned. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Right now, we currently we're at a pre-release version. We're working toward a v1.0.0. We have a milestone for that. Right now, we've only identified 2 things that are that we know we want to do before we have, a first version. And we said our stated goal was to have a version at least before KubeCon NA, ideally before then, so we can publicize it to folks and get people excited that things are actually happening, and there's a real kind of standard out there that this working group has decided on. But yeah, that's primarily the principles, but the other supporting documents, they're meant to be versioned together because the principles can, for now, the principles will be linked to glossary items, and that is the goal. But that glossary may potentially want to connect to other supporting documents. So if there's something in there that's really relevant to a specific, set of use cases or whatever else, it would be, or some other place in the supporting document, it would be really nice if a glossary item could do that. So we wanted to version them all together so someone could just download that package at a specific version. So that makes sense. That's my long way of saying that makes sense. To me, anyway. What do you all think?
So the reason why I brought up the idea of having the patterns, best practices, whatever you want to call it, in a separate repo is I believe that's going to be a lot of documents. There's going to be a lot of text. There's going to be a lot. It kind of needs its own space. There's going to be too much to cram that into with everything else. I would rather see that being in its own repo, and then with the project's repo would then point to that as a place to look at patterns. We can do follow-up things. We could do blog posts. We could do even complete videos, just showing examples from that repo. So I think the amount of content that can become kind of needs its own repo and have its own life cycle per se. Yeah.
Any comments on that?
Quick comment is that I don't have a strong opinion on that. I was just sort of outlining trying to recall what we had said previously. That's it. All that's subject to change. So whatever is best for end users, Robert, you know what I mean? Like whatever's best for the project, whatever's best for end users, we can reorganize as needed. I think maybe a good rule of thumb is if there are documents that we find that we do want to refer to from the principles, at least through a series of links, then we should version them together because that will be versioned. If we do not intend to do that, which maybe we don't, maybe it's not necessary to link to specific patterns through there, then it really isn't necessary to be in that repo. It can be on its own.
Yeah, and let's not, like Scott and I were talking about getting the website up, and we're gonna push it up manually, right? No, we're gonna move hopefully rapidly and set up the automation so it's done in a GitOpsy way. But let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. I mean, let's let's, you know, if you guys feel more comfortable just trying to push it through something simple, let's do it that way, and then we'll evolve it. You know, I mean, let's not over engineer these problems. And on a second note, like when it comes to work on this project, this is a total open source project. There's no someone else out there that's like doing all the things, and we're just trying to give them like the tasks to take care of. You know, between the co-chairs and then the committees, which are all volunteer engagements, we all have full-time jobs. We all have got a little, you know, a little bit of time here and there to contribute. But if you've got something that you're excited about, you want to engage on it, dude, shoot ahead. Let us give you some support. You know, let's give you a high five, and we'll try to look at the pull requests and look at the issues and participate. But the only way we're really ever going to be successful is if more people are contributing more, right?
Totally. My only, Robert, I'm just going to send you a link to this. But just, would you mind doing me a favor? Like just maybe think over it and see if you think that it needs a separate repo to even start. Like maybe take a look at, there's a section in the project README now that describes the repos as is. That came from a discussion in the GitOps working group, which I could be wrong, but I seem to remember you being like one of the 2 people that were into that discussion item about repo structure. But this can continue to change. So maybe just look over it and think about it and see how you feel. And if you think it really requires its own, then maybe make a pull request to that README too, and we can set that up. If you don't think it needs it immediately, then we could start putting it in the documents repo and move it later. Whatever you think is best.
I think we could either do like our own repo for patterns or best practices or whatever people suggest, then we all agree on, or probably have it under documents. But at that point, you know, depending on the amount of things going into that documents repo, it can get a little, you know, a lot of history mixed up in between.
Should we wait to see if it outgrows its pot? If it's, you know?
Well, if we start doing like best practices / patterns, good, bad, anti-patterns, whatever, you know, and for some reason we start doing a white paper or something, you know, that doesn't mean that the documents repo is going to be too convoluted, I think. So it's probably, you know, just as well to just start by putting stuff into the documents repo.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else.
So, I had my hand raised, and since no
Yeah,
one's
yeah,
speaking,
go ahead. Sorry.
we're
We're
no
not
worries.
so many that
Yeah.
I'm watching the hand
I just-
raising super carefully.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think this is a case of if you build it, they will come, right? So I don't think so. I'm actually like William, like I'm actually willing to contribute. Like I'm opinionated, right? For those who worked with me, so like I actually have strong opinions, and I think things should go a certain way. And I'm willing to contribute. It's just like point me where, and then I'll start PRing the heck out of it, right? So I think if there's a consensus of where, like where the entry point is, at least we can then move it around later, right? At least if we tell people, hey, put it here as the entry point, and then I think people will start contributing more. I think a lot of it is like people don't know where to contribute. Like for me, like William's talking about like telco patterns, right? With GitOps, like I would put that maybe under documents, but then some people think, well, maybe that should go under website. But I think as long as we have like a place where it lands, we can then decide where it best goes. So I don't know. Yeah, so that's just my 2 cents on that. I think at least if we have a place where it lands, deciding where it goes, you know, that can come later. Like Dan, like you said, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Let's just put it somewhere.
Yeah. Documents repo is always safe. It doesn't just show up somewhere, and then the website doesn't automatically slurp anything yet, as Scott is saying in the comments here. So if you want to put it in the website, I think I'm fine with that too. And then William is asking, for the work on the patterns, should we create a separate repo right now for patterns so it doesn't break it from the beginning without affecting anything quote unquote stable, which is, I don't think there is anything stable at this point, so I'm not super worried about it. Yeah, I honestly, for that, like, I'd be thrilled to just, under the content directory of the website, make a new folder for patterns and then just work there, because that will, by doing it that way, you're going to automatically create an MDX file and any other files for each entry. And you have a pattern just like the blog that we do. And then you can add some metadata and stuff like that at the top, and we can always move it around later if we need to. Robert?
I think we kind of need to organize a little bit though, because otherwise, it's kind of hard to get started, and what kind of patterns do we want to do, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just for the record, I'm not going to be a consultant anymore at my job. I'm going to be like an in-house guy that makes a platform. So everything I do these days are actually looking at patterns, like what can we do with this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So and that, and being part of the cooperative delivery working group as well. Like everything I do right now is kind of pattern and looking at how to do stuff with different stuff. So that would be great if we could actually just come together and figure out how we want this presented, and what can we start with? Where do we start? Because I'm also just point me in the right direction. I also do PRs, but we need a little bit of structure, or else someone needs to clean up everything afterwards. But documents repo with a pattern directory or something that would work for now, at least, until someone figures out otherwise, I think.
Yeah, William's asking, well, any comment on that from anybody else? I'm excited.
Just here's the discussion link for what we had before. That might be valuable to revisit that. And yeah, I guess my memory was correct on that, Robert. You and Lothar were the people that commented there.
Do we want to organize something besides, I guess, principles and events and the monthly thing? Do we want to talk a little bit what we think patterns should look like, or best practices, or whatever?
Sure.
We even what to call it.
Yeah.
Is that a thing we could organize in some way or fashion?
Yeah, let's take a few minutes right now to talk through it. And I think what we had originally kind of envisioned was a directory that anybody could submit to. And I was thinking like, oh, I want to show, like, if somebody searches for how to do AWS with EKS and GitHub, I want to have a CodeFresh pattern there. And let's have a Flux pattern there, and let's have an Argo pattern there, and let's have, and then if you're, so I kind of imagined that there would be like a tech stack metadata thing that was like, I'm looking for things with this stack in it. Like I want to do OpenShift. Okay, well, if I want to do OpenShift and I'm doing GitOps, okay, here's the patterns I should follow. And for format, I imagine them essentially as a diagram with kind of a blog post and discussion and explaining it and why it's done this way and what works well and what doesn't work well. But then leaving it fairly free flow, let people kind of, if you want to make it really long, you can. If you want to make it short, you can. That was kind of my original thinking with this, and happy to go in a different direction and do different stuff too.
We could, do articles and have like a metadata where you have categories or delivery tool, the CI and CD tools, whatever. And if that would be a good thing to kind of use as something you can point from, for instance, the website. If you had a place where you can filter based on, GitHub Actions and Argo, you'll get something back that would say, all right, you could do this. That would be really cool and probably very helpful for people starting out, at least. So again, metadata, just doing the whatever is called front matter thing in YAML or Markdown.
Yeah. Any other ideas, stuff that we should support, baseline requirements? Maybe we should mention just process for getting these up. I didn't think about like, let's have a review committee or anything like that. I felt like it was like, someone can post this and we can have, a label on it that says community, and maybe there's some mechanism by which people can add like a +1 or like, yeah, I used this and it worked for me. But I don't think that we as a committee necessarily want to take a stand on like if somebody submits something and it purports to be conformant, and it's not blatantly not conformant with the standard, with the principles, then just merge it and move on.
Yeah, I think if the only checking should be done is as long as it doesn't contradict the principles, right? So as long as we're not contradicting ourselves, right? Like we're posting something that contradicts the principles. But I think other than that, it's just as long as it's conformant to those principles. I mean, it maybe should have a review of maybe like 1 or 2, people from the working group just to make sure. But it doesn't have to, like you said, Dan, it has to be like an official process or like a whole like code review sort of thing. But maybe just kind of looking at them like, all right, as long as you meet the four principles, you merge it and go.
Yeah.
And okay, so can we do something like, for example, to make sure that it's following the principle, to I don't know, add some structure, like, okay, it should include a mapping to which principles are covered, or I don't know, something that could be used as an easier translation of, okay, this is the pattern, and this pattern is probably only on one of the principles where you're covering in that sort of blog post. As what I understood from Dan is like, it can be individual posts. So in that case, you probably be covering only one of the principles. So mapping to that.
Scott?
Yeah. I think we've already covered a lot of the stuff in the sense that, we're really, we've got a working group for as long as it's needed to help with the Open GitOps project. We now are transferring relevant things over to the sandbox project itself, the Open GitOps project. We have these committees, these kind of ad hoc committees of people who are interested in focusing on different parts of different important things, including those foundational principles. It seems that the people in this group are interested not only in the principles, but also in really just the lasting documents for this project, for the Open GitOps project, because they are either supporting documents or supported by those foundational principles. So that's how we have it set up right now anyway. As Dan said, pull request, discussion. We have GitHub discussion set up now, so we can have, conversations about this. I imagine pull requests might take a little while, but we could probably get them going relatively quickly. What I think is something we should all acknowledge is that we have, it's an open source project, but we all work at different places and we all have different interests. And so in order to ensure that this project is it's a fair and balanced project, we want to at least think about what we publish together and when. For example, just because I co-maintain the Flux project, I wouldn't want to create a pull request that has a page of patterns and it's only patterns related to Flux. It wouldn't really be very well rounded, and it would give the wrong impression of the Open GitOps project. I think if we do things like this, we should think about, of course we can't be comprehensive to start, but if we start a new section, I think it would be good to try to be well rounded, to really show the community what this GitOps thing is all about from the highest level perspective. Of course, we can promote various tools, and we should. It's important to let people know what's out there, but we really need to, I think, try to keep that in mind as we do this. I just wanted to make that note, but I have no objection personally with any of this kind of stuff. This all sounds good. Use cases, patterns, user roles, etc. We wanted to flesh those out in this PR. Let me just send it to you real quick. The older PR that was closed in favor of us focusing just on those initial principles. And our plan is to get back to this and go back and mine some of this for information for this prior art, and or prior work rather, that went into this that was drawn from different places, including collaboration with other people on this call. So that I don't think has a full section on patterns yet, but it has the intention of that, and it has some other supporting documents in it. So let's work on them. That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments?
I would just like to expand on the thing that I wrote in the chat. One thing is the patterns documents, and possibly something else related to that, sort of like white paper things and stuff like that, but also user stories, or how things what's happening in the field, from the field notes, whatever you want to call it. I think that having someone that actually is more interested in the documents should be involved, at least, to just look over and kind of help if things are stalling at a certain point on a pattern or something that someone's written from a use case standpoint. Someone would actually just kind of pick it up after a while and push it through, because they are involved in the documents process. So I think having a team that would kind of look at those kind of things would be beneficial for progress.
I feel like that's part of the job of the principals committee, right? At least at this point. No, is it too divergent?
I propose that we rename the principals committee to a documents committee at some point, and I think
the principals and documents committee.
Yeah, and then I think Chris Sanders suggested that that these committees are really just here. It really is just a way to have some organization to this working group. The working group itself is not meant to be forever. We should just organize however we think makes the most sense for us, as long as the process of organizing doesn't actually detract from our goal. If it helps things and makes us go, get to our goal of working on this content together and really building this community and building the movement, then great. When they start to not do that, we should probably just let them go. I think Chris suggested that we just make a documents committee, and maybe it's all the same people. Maybe we stop this one and maybe we move it over. I don't know. It's really up to you all, or it's really up to the group, I think. But really, that's what we did with the events committee. We had it started out as GitOps Con committee, and then we realized there were other events that are relevant to GitOps, so we just renamed it to broaden its scope a little bit. I'd be down for that. I honestly I can be extremely opinionated. Maybe it's just my attitude today, but I really don't care exactly how we do it, as long as we just, pick one of them and go with it, and don't get super attached to exactly how these committees are organized. As long as we respect each other, and as long as we, respect and make sure that it's a welcoming space for everyone involved, and like have a goal, I'm happy. And I can make suggestions on which we do. Like, for one suggestion is, let's just rename it to documents committee. I don't know. But in terms of like an actual, sorry, one more quick point. In terms, I think I might be to my 2 minutes now almost, but like in terms of an actual process for reviewing pull requests, yeah, let's. I think we said that people on each committee we would make separate teams for, just like we did in the GitOps working group repo, or org rather. We'll make separate teams for in GitHub. Invite each person to the organization, so that like you can put this on your GitHub page and say, I'm part of this organization. I actually do, in fact, participate. I'm not just trying to, I don't know, like be part of things I don't participate in. I really do participate in this. And secondly, it's a very common practice in organizations to have a finite set of maintainers, a set of maybe another level from there, in this case perhaps the chairs. That's what at least we have with the GitOps working group and the project right now. And then it should have many more organization members, and many of whom are very involved in the project, who have different responsibilities. If we need to make a separate responsibility, like a role, like a triage role, someone who can help with issues and so on, and pull requests, we could do that too. But I would personally like to recommend that we follow things that work for other CNCF and open source projects.
Yeah, agreed.
Sorry, I'm a little
Go
busy today.
Yeah. So, very tactical question then. So let's say under document, so how will this be, or should be formatted, I should say? Like, for example, there's a markdown with one or more markdowns, and if there are images, is there going to be like a common image repository? I mean, directory. How do we create this in units that do not interfere one with the other? And
Sounds good to me.
which one?
Well, I honestly think that we can resolve the details of that on a pull request basis, or that might be a good place to open a discussion. We just set that up from the last meeting, right before I had to take my break. But I'll just link to it. I'll send a link to it. They're inside of Open GitOps project. There's a discussions section. Here we go. And the first post, I just kind of used the GitHub template and added a few extra little frills, basically saying, yeah, this is for this project. Make sure to read our code of conduct and our contributing guidelines. But otherwise, just use GitHub discussions as they're meant to be. Any thoughts, pop them in there. If we need to, we can turn them into issues, and any of those issues we can move to the appropriate repos. So like, if it's kind of like, should we have an images directory versus link them somewhere else? I think that's a good discussion topic. I don't have any really strong opinions about that exact detail right now, personally.
No.
Like, and I'll tell you why real fast, is that we have a goal to get these principles to a stable state, or sorry, not state, but a stable place where we can actually really feel comfortable promoting them. For example, on the website, one of the reasons that we had been focused again on simplifying those first sentences is because once we actually started using them in a real world scenario, like for example in the website preview, and got feedback from other people, it became clear that there were some things that we might want to adjust just style wise. Like making them shorter and so on, you know, things like that. But one way or the other, once we get
It's
that there, it will be ready to then, I think, move, I don't know, to really use, to really flesh out the other parts of this project. So I guess
So
I'm not
you're-
getting involved in the details. Sorry. Yeah.
so so you're saying ask for forgiveness, not for permission, right? So just right, like make a PR, and if it's wrong, then we'll just
Yeah,
fix
we'll
in the
nail
PR.
it out in the PR.
Exactly. And or start a discussion if you'd feel burned by putting a lot of work into something without having a good direction with feedback from other people.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, I actually feel like that's maybe a good stopping point. I have to apologize. I am really burned out today. I'm like really just losing the thread over here, and I don't know if I just need to go take a walk around the block or what. But it's been a long day, so I think I'm ready to call it. So one of the action items we had, Scott, from before you came in, was to look at maybe moving this meeting to be every other week. Because we've kind of rounded the corner on some of the big stuff, and I think some of us were feeling like, well, maybe we're losing a little participation because people feel like they can't come every week, and we're kind of rotating through people. So I'll bring that up with you, and we'll talk on co-chairs and get that scheduled. But for the next meeting, do we have any volunteers to take on moderation or notes?
I'm happy to moderate again next week. That seemed to be helpful. We can rotate me out again, or rotate someone else in.
Yeah, I can do notes next week. Looks like my count.
Excellent.
If it is next week, I don't know when.
Well, we haven't
Next
changed
time.
yet.
Yeah,
We
no, we haven't changed it
yet. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. Let's plan on it being next week. And if I can make a suggestion, I'd love us to work between now and then on really forming our feelings, or not necessarily taking a position, but just getting kind of measuring our feelings about some of the different proposals that have come up so far about really sort of getting that V1 of the principles out there. And if that means, I will definitely be participating in GitHub discussions. I think Dan has a plan to help with the website preview so that we can kind of see what they even look like in a designed format. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can just try to be async about a little bit of that stuff. And and I think that might actually help us understand whether or not we want to have a fortnightly or weekly meeting, or whether we actually feel like we don't need to meet synchronously anymore and we can just do this asynchronously from this point onward for the most part. If it functions well, we know we can.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Sounds good. Well, let's close there before I pass out. Sorry, folks.
Me too.
I'll bring more energy next week. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the discussion. Appreciate the help. Let's keep it going. Let's get into Git. Get into Git.
Let's get into Git.
That's
Git.
a t-shirt right there.
It's only a rumor. Unless it's in Git, it's only a rumor. All right.
Yeah. Next week we'll talk about starting our t-shirt company, guys.
Sounds good.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
Yes.